I am literally just relaxing. It's not something I normally do. It's nice. Y'all think I should stay in lifeguarding part-time? What do you think? Gotta do something soon because my certifications, I gotta hold on to them. I gotta keep my job, of course. It's just for the summer, longer days, there's pools out there that it's worth being able to stay as a lifeguard and keep going. I don't know, should I go work for Bangor Pool part-time? Nazareth? This means it's going to take up more of my time, but I'm going to need to make a little more money if my kids aren't working. I'd like to get my son Christian to work with me or get started as a lifeguard. I could train him right now and certify him, but I don't know what his problem is. I don't know why he'd make a perfect lifeguard. He's actually saved people before. It's just not thinking clearly, I guess, how fun it is. You don't have to have a job that only deals with what you want to be in your future, that you think you want to be. He wants to get into construction and building, but not once has he made a phone call to a company and asked to get hired after school hours to come help out. How bad do you really want it? Or is it just what you think you want? And I'm not just trying to talk him into lifeguarding because I do it, but because he has been raised around it would be easy for him. I have all the equipment here. I can train him myself and certify him, but he's not... I don't want it to be looked at as unfair either. That, don't run into the rabbits. Yeah, I don't know. I think Christian just needs to be a lifeguard. And, we'll see how fun it is. It kind of isn't fun. You sit there a lot and you're just watching and waiting, and it's nerve-wracking. And he said to me, Mom, I said, what is stopping you? And he said, Mom, I don't know. It's a huge responsibility. I don't know if I'll be able to do the right thing when the time comes. I mean, for the most part, majority of things that happen is going to be a kid's, your job is to monitor kids and parents. If parents are drunk or high, you got to have some authority to make sure that they leave the premises because it's not safe. It's part of the rules. You can't be publicly drunk or intoxicated. Kids, they run, they jump, they play, they do flips sometimes. That's hard for a teenager to correct another teenager and say, hey man, it's my job, but you're not allowed to do flips and dives right here. I mean, somebody's going to get hurt. And they are. You got to be a strong-willed person with authority. It is your job. You can't have favoritism either on certain people because they'll take advantage once they know that they can walk all over you. So you do have to have an aspect of leadership and authority to lifeguard and do your job with the liability correctly. That's what they're paying you for. The company that hires you is paying you to take responsibility, and it's a huge responsibility. So you're not just sitting there, you're watching the waters. And God forbid somebody does drown. Now you got to get in there and save them. So everybody's worried about doing it perfectly, but that's not even the point. Anybody who sees anybody drowning or needing help is going to jump in and help them. A lot of times the pedestrians will get to it before you do. Yes, when it comes down to the rescuing part, where you get the patron, the drowned person out of the water, you do have to know procedures, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to know the basics. That's where people, I mean, yes, you need to know what you're doing, but you need to understand why they teach that to you, and they drill it in you, and they do constant drills on you to recognize a drowning victim and the type of victim you're dealing with. So you can get a baby. That's easy. You pluck them out of the water and you start your CPR, and you go from and your breathing techniques. And hopefully you get them quick. And most people are not going to leave a baby alone, but for that case, that's the worst case scenario. Yeah, it is a lot of responsibility if you find a child upside down in the water, floating. That's horrible. And there's not much you can do if it's gone for too long unnoticed. Now, I don't think any lifeguard's going to hold liability for something like that if you weren't on duty and you come across it in your travels somewhere at somebody's home or something. That doesn't count. But if it was your job to be watching and there's 100 people in the pool and you're over your census and you happen to notice a child, that a mom fell asleep on the blanket and a child got up and ran into the water, and you don't know if it's too late, but you still have to take action and continue to take that action, whether or not it's apparent that the child is dead or alive. So that is your job. That is where that entire 8-hour shift that you sat and rotated and watched the waters and was bored as hell, and you're sick of sitting in the sun, and you get to watch everybody else have fun because you're the one making sure everybody's safe. And it's tedious, it's exhausting, you're tired. People don't understand because they're just having fun. They think your job is just to sit there and do nothing. You really are doing a lot. You're observing, and you have a lot of responsibilities in front of you. So you are getting paid for what you're doing, and probably not paid enough. But it's good experience, because when that moment happens, if it ever happens, you know what to do. You just have to be the one that knows a little bit more of what to do, so that it's recorded accurately. You're going to look at the time when this situation's over. You're going to write up a report. If somebody tripped and fell and scraped their knee and you have to do first aid because they got a little blood and you got to clean them up a little, you're going to put on your gloves and you're going to, get a 2x2, and you're going to dry them up. And you might get ice. You're going to put, Band-Aid on there, or not. Sometimes you don't need a Band-Aid. Just need ointment or something. It's going to come off in the water anyways if they go in again. There's a lot that you can learn from being a lifeguard that could help if you work in any field later on. First responders are all the same. I mean, you come across an accident and you know how to hold pressure on somebody's head if they're having an open bleeding wound. And you know where the arteries are and the most important spots to pay attention to if they're bleeding from there. That comes first. How to hold the spine and the neckline, if there's a head injury, because they could damage their spinal cord easily. So there's a lot you can learn, and the best thing about lifeguarding is what you learn are all kinds of basics of like OSHA and paying attention to chemicals and your surroundings, dangerous situations, and how to handle that if it does come about. That could be any situation, any job site. In construction, they have to constantly be safety oriented. What happens if a person you work with chopped their finger off, or got it caught in a door or a window, or got a huge splinter, shot a nail through their foot? It happens every day. Falls off a ladder, off a roof, and you have to be the one there and call 911. Shit happens every day. And having that safety background, you think wouldn't be good to have on your resume? Just because you want to work in construction later on in your life doesn't mean that you can't go work as a lifeguard for a season and get some certifications under your belt that would help build your resume. And I'm sick of these kids that think that they can just jump ahead into a career, one shot done, they know what they want to do the rest of their lives. Not everybody's like that. They have no other diverse background to know when they get older if they could have done or been interested in anything else. So I don't always agree that a kid that gets their first job should be something exactly what they want to do, because they have to know what they don't want to do and experience some things to know what they do want to do. And that comes with failures, wins, and challenging times and experiences. And you're not willing to challenge yourself because you don't have any belief in yourself, that you're not really going to get anywhere or even respect anything you have in the future. That's just how I feel. So I like lifeguarding because it's actually relaxing to me. Such an easy job for me. I've worked in many different medical environments, and I don't have a degree. I was not able to get the pay rate for my experience no matter what I did, but I actually did work my way up the ladder the hard way from the bottom up, and I know quite a bit. And I don't get that recognition that I deserve for that, and I'm not where I should be with all the experience I have. I was never able to go back to school and finish school for nursing to become I wanted to be a flight nurse or a flight medic or just a paramedic. I couldn't have that lifestyle and my children and take care of them without the support that I needed to have that career, even though I was good at it. I would have been a really good doctor. Let's say I had parents that encouraged me to go to college when I was younger and believed in me and maybe had some money to help me go to school or help me pay my bills so I could afford to go to school. Maybe if I had the support to watch my children so I could go to school, I would still be able to get through and could have done that. Now, I'm not blaming or making excuses in any way. Things happen in life. But I remember going through things and my husband was not supportive, and I had to take my kids with me to one of my final exams. I think it was like my sociology class or something. Yeah, I had to bring like whatever electronics I could bring. They were like 5 and 6 years old. I couldn't find a sitter. My sister was busy. My brothers were busy. Nobody ever watched my kids. No, I'm not shitting on anybody. They had busy lives, and I was the youngest. So like I never had anybody. And if my husband didn't want to come home and agree to watch the children, and it's time when I look at the watch that I got to go take my final exam for the semester, and my parents were busy or my mom or whatever, and what choice do you have? You throw your kids in the car, you take them to school, you hope for the best. I don't care if I answer 2 questions on that thing and that's all I can get done. I don't care if I look bad. I took my kids, and I was aware that they probably weren't going to sit still and quiet under a desk in the room, and I'm not going to be able to take my test out in a hallway with my children because it's a test. I had to put them closest to the door at a table outside the classroom door. And I knew the teacher was going to shut the door, and that made me really nervous. But I kept one eye on my children through the door and the window in the back room, and I picked the furthest back, and I turned my desk and chair so that I could keep an eye on them. And I took my exam. And my teacher even said, if you need to come back and do this another time, we could try to make an arrangement. You just won't get as good of a score. And I was like, no, I'm here now. I gotta, it's just a situation. Yeah, I think I passed. I got like a 90%. In the end result, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough money. I didn't have the support. That's the reality of it. And I couldn't get where I needed to be because people didn't believe that like that was where I should be. So I don't make a lot of money, and I'm not a materialistic person because of that. Because we had to figure out how to make it without having that kind of money. Did I want it? Yeah, I wanted it so I wanted money so I can take care of my family. It's important, but what are you gonna do about it when everything you have tried, you've done everything you possibly can, and you still did not get where you were supposed to be? Are you gonna cry about it? No, you just keep going. And those experiences that I've had with all these jobs to work my way up, man, it taught me so much. I loved it. But it was a lifestyle of like the free-spirited, you know what I mean? Like, you work every holiday, nights, weekends, swing shift. You have no life. It's a very selfless lifestyle. But that's why they get paid pretty well if you're doing good. But I never really made it past like the lower pay rates of what the peons do. I want to say it. I just want to say it. Like, as a CNA, you don't make enough money. You break your back, and you usually end up with like workers' comp within the first couple of years. I saw that, and it's depressing, and it wasn't for me. Kudos to the people that stuck with it. I wanted to save people and help people, so I went into like hospital care, and I became a tech, and I was really good at drawing blood. And then I became a CPR instructor, and that was really fun. I like to teach. And then I was like an advocate and like a preceptor for people in training at Lehigh Valley. And then I was a float pool tech, so I could go work on behavioral health. And I was good at it, but I didn't really like being on behavioral health at all because it was draining. It's complicated. Scary a little. And then ICU and the NICU, I worked for the NICU over at the Pocono Hospital before it became Lehigh Valley. That was probably one of the most exciting times in my life, where I first learned how to scrub into an operating room and help as a tech to the doctors and nurses. And it's very involved. And you have to be very respectful and know how to follow the rules and understand the politics and do your job well to get a position like that. And I did. But I didn't get paid what those doctors and nurses got paid at all. I was still missing weekends, sleep at night, holidays, time with my kids, sacrificing all that. That's probably why I ended up with the divorce, and my husband was cheating on me because I wasn't there. And I couldn't engage with my children as much because I was busy working double shifts. I gave up a lot and sacrificed a lot to advance forward. And then people saw me as a failure when I couldn't hold that job anymore and had to find something better. I had to find a different department. I had to transfer. I had to find an 8-hour shift. I had to go per diem so I could go back to school. So I would have to cut back on my hours, and now I can't pay my bills. And now it was a constant back and forth figuring out, because I was poor and struggling and couldn't get anywhere. that that made me really get out of the field. I mean, there was a lot of politics and things in the end that sometimes you know too much and you're hurtful, hateful inside because you know how this goes. And once somebody on the unit doesn't like you, that's been there longer than you, that has like more pull than you, they can absolutely get rid of you. So a lot of times my jobs, I wasn't just a job jumper. It just felt like after I was there for a few months, either people really didn't like me because I was either showing them that I can do more than they can do better in a short period of time, and they didn't like that because they had seniority. So it was like a jealousy thing and like job security thing to like try to push me out, or I just didn't feel comfortable because I couldn't accomplish what I said I could do, like going back to school and finishing another course and getting my RN and getting in the program. I couldn't get into the program because I couldn't finish my prerequisites. I couldn't finish my prerequisites because I didn't have enough time in between work, because I also had 2 autistic high functioning kids and I was going through a divorce and my dad just passed away. So I couldn't handle all that. And then not getting into the program made me look like I lied during my interview to get that position on that unit when I transferred. And it wasn't going to line up well. You know, like it looked like I was just bullshitting. And I wasn't. It's just a matter of circumstances kept happening and I was being slowed down or blocked from that pathway. But I still learned a lot and I enjoyed it. So like a lot of people misinterpreted me as a job jumper or like not good at my job. I was good at my job, but I had a lot going on that nobody could see on the outside, that I was struggling with, that wasn't my fault. I'm not making excuses, but I like legitimately was going through very atrocious, serious abuse while maintaining a job that was 40 minutes away from my home, and the daycare didn't open until 6:15 a.m. in our local area. We don't have 24-hour, 7 days a week daycares. You know, if there's a holiday, they close. If you don't have a sitter, you're fucked. How do you work that when you work in the medical field as a single parent and the other half will purposely not take the children on their days that they're expected to? You put your job in jeopardy, and then you get a write-up, and then after so many write-ups you lose your job. So it wasn't that I didn't want to go to work. There were times I legitimately had to like handle life at home, and that doesn't work in the medical field. You have to have support. So don't go in the medical field unless you have that kind of support. I'm not saying it's impossible to complete it and do what you want to do, but it's not easy. It's a lot. And because we're so compassionate for people, we learn to hide it best in front of others, what we don't want others to know about our own personal life, because we're constantly having to show our professional image in a work atmosphere and be there to care for and be empathetic for others. We're always the caretaker for others, so we can endure a lot and we can take in a lot, and nobody's gonna care anyway what you're dealing with at home. When you're on that clock, you better be there at 6:45 a.m. No later. You can work overtime, but you better clock out at the time that they tell you, because it can't be on record unless they're willing to give you that overtime and they approve it. So they want you to stay past your hours longer to handle and complete your work, but not on the record. And they can do that to you over and over and over again without it being shown that that's what they've pushed you into doing. But if you're 2 minutes late in the morning or 15 minutes late because of traffic, they will write you up. And the people that don't like you on the unit, that are looking for a way to get rid of you because you show them up and they don't want to have to work as hard. And it's obvious when you're able to get the workload done and they're not, and they don't want other people to see that their section is falling apart because the other section that you have is handled, and it looks like it's impossible, but somehow somebody else is able to do it, so it makes you look bad. So they want to get rid of you. And so you've got enemies, and you're alone. People want you written up. They want you out of there. So I could never get comfortable for too long in a position. I don't know if anybody's understanding that, but like, I never intended to jump jobs. It just always happened to me, and I had to just like pick up and keep moving. And then, oh my God, what am I going to do next? Or what can I do next? Or I got to get another job. And, you know, I would just hit the pavement, filling out application after application. I was good with my words. I did okay with my interviews. I wasn't lying. I have the experience that I've said I've had, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. And I just kept going, even if the next job ended up being something I totally had no thoughts of ever doing with my life, but I had not done it before, and it might be a good experience, so I had to just look at it as a positive. My mom would be like, whoa, great, what the hell are you getting into now? Listen, I just had to do what I had to do. And if you had to live my life and were given what challenges I was given, you didn't have a husband that didn't pay the bills. You didn't have a husband that left you abandoned. You guys might not have even liked each other, but you stuck together until death do you part. You didn't even like each other, and you stuck together for your children's sake and stability, which is honorable, right? I didn't, because I wouldn't stand for it. And I stood my ground, and I had to do it alone because nobody understood that you shouldn't be treated that way. And I don't care how hard it was, you had to do something different. So I dealt with a lot alone, and kind of with people against me instead of supporting me. And I'm not like shitting on anybody. It's just like, they were like, oh my God, what are you doing? You can't quit that job for this other job. You just started. And I'm like, look, I already know the signs when it's not working out there. If somebody has the upper hand in a position that is higher up than me, and they're in control, and I've been in the game long enough to know when certain things are being recorded that aren't happening. I know how that works. It's easy to get rid of somebody when you don't want them there, and unfortunately there's some bad apples in that game. And until somebody recognizes that, it wasn't worth it to say anything, or you weren't going to get anywhere saying anything. They had the company had to see it for themselves. So even Lehigh Valley, something horrible happened, and they were afraid I was going to talk about that. Other companies I worked for, I could tell you when I worked for really, really good companies and I just had to leave because I was given a better opportunity and it was time for me to move forward. But they were really good companies, and I have nothing bad to say about them. I'll spit off a few. Okay, you ready? Gerber Collision in Penargil, my boss was phenomenal. His name was Brad. I had no problem with him. I had a really good job. It wasn't until I transferred to Bath site and had a totally different supervisor, and then everything was great, and all of a sudden everything went downhill. It was so sad. It's the same company. It was just who was running it that made the difference. And somehow I lost that job. I'm not gonna crap on people. I liked Gerber, but it was who was running it, and my boss was a really good boss. Wendy's. I worked for Wendy's, and I still see the girl there that hired me, and she's still there as a supervisor. She is the best supervisor. She is. She's amazing. Yeah, so Wendy's was a great place to work, and that helped me over. Great Wolf Lodge. best damn place to work when you have Ilford, who was the director there, the aquatics director. Really, really good. I did like working for Walden's as a med tech. The director was really awesome. It's just a bad situation came in at a time when she was on vacation and she couldn't handle it, and I just couldn't stay there. So like, unfortunately, it was just bad timing, and I had to move on to something else. So where I work now is amazing. There's not one thing I can complain about at all. No, I don't make a ton of money, but I am learning so much, and they are just so kind to me. And sometimes you have really amazing jobs that you just have to move forward with, or you stick with it, and I think I finally found something I really like and I can stick with. But then there were really, really amazing jobs that the job was amazing, but unfortunately the director wasn't fit for the position, and you knew that, but you were just kind of a peon, and you couldn't really, how are we going to tell somebody how to do their job? Unfortunately, those bad apples are the ones that made the difference to lose really good workers like somebody like me. So that's like my story. So I loved Lehigh Valley. That was my favorite job. I'm so glad that Jefferson has taken over. I hope that they completely take over and revamp the whole thing. And I would have been great. I loved working for Lehigh Valley. Loved it. Loved it. But the management needed to be monitored more than us as techs and nurses and staff. There was a lot of problems, and that'll go anywhere, but unfortunately, where they were weak in my perspective was the wrong ones got let in and weren't being monitored to make the right corrections, and they got rid of the people that were good, and they let who was corruptive stay and try to keep things the way they liked it. Yeah, it was corrupt. I'm just gonna say it.